All right, and we are back for another episode of Influencer Profits, and I'm really excited. Like, I know I say that in every episode, but I'm like really excited because we are speaking my language in today's episode with our guest, Schultz. Now, Chelsea is a very spiritual entrepreneur. She's very conscious-driven. She works specifically with visionaries, with empaths, really helping them, guide them through their journey to six figures and really being in their purpose and their mission, like unashamedly who you are and what you are, even if it's not normal. Who cares? It's who you are, and I really honor and appreciate you for coming in, and I'm really excited for today's conversation.
Yay, so excited to be here. So thank you again for giving me the platform, because as we were talking about even before we got on, it's hard for sensitive people to feel like being in public and speaking about, sensitive. One of my hashtags is empath in public. It feels very much like there is a possibility of persecution. It could be a witch hunt. So I'm glad to have the platform, because as scary as it is for me to speak in public, it's so important that people know that, we're here as sensitive people to start a new way of life on Earth. So we have to do it out in the open in order to make a change here.
Yeah, I love that. So share, just to begin with, like a little bit about you and what it is exactly that you do, and then how did you get there?
Sure. So my story really starts at the beginning, towards the beginning of my life. I always knew I wanted to work for myself, because even though I was like the nice girl, I really wanted to make my own rules in life. So I started checking out books on making my own business when I was 6 at the library. And I loved to read and I loved to draw. I like to do things that were a little bit more low impact in terms of lifestyle. When I was 9, my empath abilities turned on. All of a sudden, I was just feeling all this grief and all this sadness and, not understanding where, because my life was so good, where there was the cause and effect happening of these feelings. So that was an interesting experience, just to be like feeling abuse, feeling grief, feeling sadness, and not experiencing any of it in my life, and then starting to feel some level of shame of like, why is this happening to me? Nothing's wrong with, my life, but something feels very wrong with who I am and how I feel things in the world. And then on September 11th, which is right around 12 or 13 for me, I started to see people who had passed away. So I saw a man standing in my doorway, and he was darker than the dark. And it was like my whole world shattered at that point, because up until that point, I could escape into my art, I could escape into my reading. When my reality changed so drastically that I was seeing things and hearing things that other people around me weren't, it felt totally isolating. Like I was never going to be normal. I was never going to be able to relate to the people in my suburb of Detroit that was very like Christian and, blue collar and work hard. And I was having the exact opposite experience. So when I came up through high school, I thought for a while I was schizophrenic or something weird was happening. And then I started saying the things out loud that I would feel and see and hear. And people are like, how did you know that? That's my relative. That's the pain that I'm feeling in my body. That's, I would make people cry when I would channel angels, because there's something so pure about their realm in terms of honesty, in terms of talking about people's actual state of being and them heading into the future and, where their life is going. So it was really going through a lot of that. Finally, around the time I was 17, I found my first tarot deck. It scared the crap out of me because it was so matter-of-fact accurate. And then I went into hiding again, because I thought, if I got to be out in the real world, and I was going to art school and all that, then maybe I can try and be normal. Like maybe I can turn this stuff off. So I used overworking as a way to escape my sensitivity. Like not only not deal with my high highs and low lows of like manic depression, but going into mania, like going into overworking like crazy and working in a bar setting and trying to do all these things like event planning that were really extroverted to like fix, who I was and my sensitivity and my abilities and things like that. So it just felt easier. Then I decided when I was 26, I kind of hit, I'd been suicidal since I was 9. So I hit the point where I was 26 and I was like not doing any of my soul purposes. And I wasn't being intuitive. I wasn't really talking to anybody about feelings. I wasn't doing anything that felt like me. And I hit that final point of like, I either have to do this, like I either have to take my own life and get the fuck out of here, or I have to actually try to be who I am out in public, make money at it, let my life be like validated and find other people that are like me. So yeah, I went through the journey of becoming a tarot reader, which felt really taboo to me. At the time, it wasn't as much in popular culture yet, so it was still very risky. I was putting my tarot readings online, and even my mom was like, do you have to do that? It's really going to be difficult for you, or it's going to be people are going to criticize you. And even people in my family were saying things to me about the fact that isn't that sad, like being psychic. I think about a person in a house that's just really sad, and they're living a life that's a sham. And I was thinking, this is the first time I'm telling the truth in my life, like in such a huge, transparent way for people to see. And people were telling me that like who I was wrong, or that that I was like a charlatan. So that was a good experience for me to go through. But I worked for myself in psychic shops. I was really good at predicting the future because I would channel angels, and they have a good line to our life paths. And it was nice. It felt like my time in the sun. And then my body was like, no, no more of this. I was taking, 50 to 100 unique people per month doing these readings, and I was sick constantly, which was not normal for me. And then, kind of like Holly and I have talked about before, I manifested this autoimmune disease that put me in bed for like 6 weeks. And it was really so hard for my ego, because I thought, finally, my time in the sun, like I'm validated in who I am, and I can be sensitive in public, and look, I can prove that like psychic is real because I predict the future and I do all these things. There was still a lot of striving because I didn't feel that confident in who I was. And then hitting that wall and realizing that I needed to work with people in the capacity where they weren't coming to me as a dependent on me to tell them what to do with their life. They were coming to me to work through their own stuff and do their own work, and then make an impact on the world. So that's kind of how I got into coaching, was realizing not only for my own physical health did I have to start to understand what my true worth was, and not, be running around talking to, 100 different people for my poor empathic, introverted body to deal with on a regular basis, but to take on dedicated time with people that really wanted to dive deep into who they were and live how they were designed to live here, intuitive, creative, with a lot less striving, a lot less work, a lot less hours. So yeah, long-winded, but getting to the point where I could actually work with people online. I travel the country now. I'm in a new place pretty much every month. I've been in, Costa Rica and other places too. Mostly I'm in California right now. But the opportunity to actually live the way that 5-year-old me pictured it would be like, to be like I wanted to be an artist at that point, a traveling artist. And I still do my art. But it feels kind of amazing that who I thought I wanted to be all along was who I was supposed to be. So that's what I help people do.
I think that's amazing, and I'm literally like crying because I don't know if you even realize how similar our stories are. Like, it's crazy. Like, you are the younger version of me, and I'm like, wow, that's insane. Like, so many different aspects. So how have wow, thank you for sharing all that. So being an empath, being someone that's sensitive, I know that a lot of people who are out to really make a difference and an impact in the world are those things. So that's their heart, is to go and impact other people's lives. So how do you help them get through, just like you said, there's a lot of shame sometimes, especially being a very spiritual person, where, for the longest time, I was, ever since, I have a very similar story. Ever since I was a little girl, I've seen angels, I've seen fairies, I've seen, I grew up in the woods by myself. Like, I just connected into that world. And my mom caught me, in like a circle of candles when I was probably like 12, and she beat the crap out of me. And it was like, no, this is bad. No, we can't do this. Don't tell anybody. Like, this doesn't work. It's bad. And so I like held on to all of this shame and guilt for the longest time of like, who I am is bad.
Yep.
So, and I know I'm not the only one, because as I'm listening to you and I've talked to other people, like, this is something that is a real and legit thing. So if there's anyone listening that feels this way, that's like, I know that I'm sensitive, I know that I'm an empath, but I'm almost like coming out of the closet, so to speak. How can someone come out of the closet and be really confident and just embrace that?
The best way you can do that is to find other people, kind of like even we're having this conversation right now, to find other people that have had similar experiences to you and get in the right context. I talk about this all the time with my people, that the only way that I felt confident enough to be myself in public and to start to do it for a living was knowing that there were other people that were having the same experience as me, and I didn't feel totally isolated and alone, because where I grew up, people called me a witch for wanting to recycle. Like, legitimately, that's something that happened. So, and I'm thinking, that was my fuck it moment in high school. That was around that 17-year-old kind of point, because I realized if that's why you think I'm a witch, then you don't even know the half of it. And so that was when I stopped wearing my shoes and, walked around high school barefoot and spent all my time in the art room and the band room and stuff like that. But if you want to be able to feel comfortable being who you are and being visible in these aspects that, by all means, in history have been what led to people's deaths, then you have to band together. You have to feel a sense of human community with other people who have had the same experience. That changed everything for me. Taking my first tarot class and being in an environment, where I could actually talk out loud, not only about that, but just like astrology and like the energy shifts that I would feel in a day. Like, my emotions would change 100 times a day, and then started to realize there was a pattern to all of it, because there was way more people like me than I realized. So that's, for me, the thing is, like, get in context, get with people that actually get it, because they have the same experience as you, and that will strengthen you like times 10 to feel brave enough to be yourself, like, in a very public way.
Definitely. So we attract a combination of people of, like, from Holly, obviously, from her message and who she is. And so we get some people that are really in this world. And my occurring of a lot of these people it's really hard to get them focused. And so how have you been able to work with your clients and actually focusing on, the actual business of what they do, and really getting them into, like, that realm?
Yeah, it's a good observation, because there's a few different things going on that make people unfocused. The first thing is that there is a lot of this shame that we're talking about if you want to stay in hiding when you're younger, if you wanted to stay safe and you wanted people to, like, on a survival level, like maybe your caretakers or the community to accept you and take care of you. Like, humans need that level of not only social acceptance, but just physically. When you're young, you have to be taken care of by other people. So the first thing that makes people unfocused is the shame of not fitting in when they were younger, kind of like Holly's experience. And for survival's sake, for her mom to continue taking care of her and not hurting her, right, she had to be someone different. So a lot of people that are highly sensitive and creative develop a level of indecisiveness, because they're constantly toggling between what they want isn't accepted, so they have to be someone else. And so they end up being all over the place. 2, highly sensitive people are in the realm a lot more of the right brain. So emotion and really feeling the waves of different things. Like, the way that we experience reality is so dimensional, it's hard to translate. It's hard to say it in a logical way another human can understand, because you're, like, seeing a color and an image, and you're feeling this feeling in your chest, and you're remembering this memory, and you're going through this very experiential thing that there's no language stuff in the right brain. So to get people focused that are highly intuitive, sensitive, creative, we have to work on those 2 things through their sole purpose. I have to get them to come to, what are the things on the planet that you're here to do, so that you can own that, and with support, so to kind of counteract the shame, and also with some level of organization, which is through what I do. Like, I help them, bring in a business model that actually works really well for empaths. I help them, authentically express through their marketing, so they don't feel icky about putting themselves out there or afraid that they're going to be perceived as full of themselves. That's really what has to happen is when you center in your soul purpose. And it's all very scientific for me, because if you just reverse engineer yourself based on what you do feel the most passionate about and what you do every day for the rest of your life, if you had to repeat the same thing over and over, then we really get insight into like what people are here to do. And then they can start to settle into that, so that they don't have to be like, when you're empathic, you wake up every day and it's totally like a totally new world. And so you're like grabbing at like all these different ideas and inspirations. You have this crazy tangled web of shit in your brain. And in order to organize that, you have to give yourself purpose through what is most significant for you.
Got it. You're giving me a little bit more of a roadmap to handle some more intimate situations in my life.
I had a feeling that was going to happen. So that's a good topic actually that just came up for me is, you know, a lot of empaths, they're around people and the people that they love that just don't necessarily understand how they run and how they work and how they operate. And so trying to, I mean, me and you had just a private conversation the other day of trying to, you know, appease the people that we love, but also do things that works for them, and finding, you know, I don't know if balance is quite the right word, maybe understanding is a better word, but how can intuitives and empaths like be with normal people, not normal, but normal. I don't know how else to put it, but like non-empaths, how's that?
Well, again, it really comes back to a lot of the same themes, which is why it's cool, because the process that I created all has to do with me realizing that there is these patterns that were happening with sensitive, intuitive people, that the shame is a lot of the reason, and this karmic wiring that we have for self-sacrificing, it's an energetic pattern in a lot of us, and it presents in a human way as, because I can feel that person's feeling, I'm responsible for it. So I need to then perform to it, or make it my experience. That's why I center empaths in their actual purpose, because if you're not careful when you're empathic, you are going to get the pull and the influence from any strong feeling, like it'd be like being in a room with people and the loudest personality is the one that you're going to start to like parrot and emulate. You know, it happens to me all the time still. If I'm not going through my physical daily routine of doing the things that make me feel really good in my body, like doing my art, talking about taboo emotions and spiritual experiences, which is my main soul purpose. And then I have basically, I get people to chart their human routine things that feel really good for them, so that they establish a life where they don't get caught up so much in other people's energy and start to take on, okay, because I can feel that, that's who I am, that's what I mean, that is my experience. It's like, no, the empath mission in this lifetime is to be so uniquely individual, to have more ego, to have more of a sense of I'm having this unique human experience, and it's cool if I'm human about it. I don't always have to be this higher version of myself who's helping everybody else, right? Putting the energy through their own experience and like what they actually want in their life on a daily basis, as opposed to, oh, I feel this really strongly, I have to go help this person. The best way you can help people is to be so honest and direct and speak that out loud, even in social situations when it's really uncomfortable, so that you can have your own identity and other people can, on their free will, express through theirs. Just because you feel it does not mean that you're responsible for it. And that's what a lot of empaths go through. So
I think you just hit something there. You know, we do have all these feelings and like what's differentiating, what's yours, what's theirs, is yours theirs, are you, and you know, I've been in the personal development world for a long time, and so a lot of it is like, well, what you're feeling is actually you. It's not other people. And like trying to talk me out that I'm an empath. And I'm like, I know what I'm feeling. Like I used to go to the grocery store and I'd be like, that person is having an affair. That person is cheating.
Yep.
Like, that person's an alcoholic. This person just got the crap beat out of them. This person just cried themselves to sleep last night because they're super lonely. Like I could just go and feel that individually, and then other people would be like, yeah, that's just you creating that. And so it's that struggle. So you just kind of really get something there.
That's
yep.
Cool. So how do you serve your clients currently? Are you doing coaching? Are you doing do you have a course? Do you have retreats? Like what do you offer currently?
Yeah, so I do, like you said, I do one-on-one coaching, which allows me really to help someone in a way that I wasn't able to be helped, or that I didn't have the resource to help. I basically, the way that my business model works is the people I help are a past version of me, and that's how I teach business as well. Because then you work on a model where it is equally as healing for you to show up to work for your business every day as it is for you to help other people do things, right? And you're talking from your wisdom as opposed to me, like, I have never been through an abusive situation. I have, friends and family that have, but why would I be the best person to help someone who has abuse or has experienced abuse if I haven't myself? I really think that our society is shifting towards a lot more of this mentorship type model. So when I work with people one-on-one, I get the opportunity to be that intimate support for them. And over the course of 3 months, we identify their soul purpose. We build their whole business based on their pace in life and the lifestyle. Like, the back end of the business essentially is what they need it to be. We reverse engineer what their true worth is, which is really easy to do, because take all of the expenses you have in life, think about the cool things that you want to be able to do in a year. Like, if money was unlimited, and add those things together, divide up, the 12 months, and look at how much money you actually need to be making in order to have a really fully expressed, cool life, not just for you, but so you can give to other people so much more, right? So we do all of this work to really reverse engineer what schedule did they actually need to be on. When you tell an empath, oh, you don't actually have to work, the 40-hour work week because we're not designed for it, then they get to spend a lot of time in nature. They get to be with people in a much more intimate way. They actually get to be a better service to people. So I work with people one-on-one to do this. I also do this in a group setting now, which is my 6-Figure Soul Purpose Academy. It is incredible what happens in a group of people that finally feel like, holy shit, there's more of me. And I can go through this journey with others to really discover who I am, because what comes up in the work that I do, it goes really deep, really fast. It gets to the core of who they are, and then all the crap, every time they've hidden themselves from people, every single part of their life where they couldn't be the full expression of who they were. They couldn't say their emotions out loud. They couldn't, like Holly, say, like, you're walking through the grocery store and it's hard to be in life where you're like feeling all these things that those people themselves aren't conscious of, aren't talking about, aren't seeking help about, and to really figure out where do you fit in the scheme of things. Empaths are truth tellers. So being able to put people in a group setting where they can meet each other and they can unfold their own unique business around who they are, it's incredible. Like, it's the thing I wish that I had, that, there's taboo in both communities. In the business community, it's weird to be spiritual and to be emotional and to do less. And in the spiritual community, it is weird and bad and wrong to want money, to be in your human body, to talk about daily routine, to own the fact that you are a human that has to, like, shit, eat, needs affection, needs all these things. So I combine the two worlds because that's who we are, So yeah, when I work with people in those capacities, it's really exciting. And I do have an empath abilities course coming out too that I've been working on, which cuts really close for me. So the more vulnerable I get with myself and my past, all the things that I wanted to learn, and if I could have seen me at that point, that's the person I always want to be in my business for my people. So that's how I show up, and that's kind of what I offer at this point.
That's awesome. So obviously you could get the course coming out. What's the next level after that? Like, where do you see yourself in your business in 3 to 5 years?
I want to rule the world, man. I want myself and my fellow highly sensitive people in leadership positions in the world, and not necessarily that we all have to be politicians or anything else, but for me, I've seen, this is the funny thing about being empath and the stuff that you'll feel self-conscious about talking about. I already seen what the future looks like for me. I've seen the vision of what my highest expression is. For me, that would be writing books, having lots of space and time to be myself, knowing that millions of people are going to buy my books when I kind of record all this information that I'm talking about now, that I'm doing with people personally, is going to get put into, books and online content, stuff like that. And then my vision is to have like my house in St. John and a beautiful life with my family. And then also be, house in San Francisco, a few other things going on. Like I want to live in conscious communities. I want to put together a soul family and build a movement. And so what I'm doing right now is starting very niche and very small. And then I'm hopefully going to turn the turbines to everybody that I'm able to come in contact with and mentor. I would like for them to go out and start being this thing in their own way, empath in public. And we need to start to take over the money systems and change things here so that everybody on the planet can have what they need on a basic level. Empaths are the most generous people I know. So when we have money and power and influence, like I said, when I have my houses in 2 different places, I have conscious communities in those places that are almost completely self-sustainable. I have, thought leaders from every different kind of, engineers and people that are highly technical to people that are very creative and very spiritual, coexisting and planning what the world really should be so everyone can get taken care of. People can be fed, things like that. So my vision is, even it scares the shit out of me every day I wake up because it's more massive and it takes a lot more of what I do into a vulnerable, like outward way than makes me comfortable. But I don't see how I can be anything else in the world, because if it's not there already, then we have to create it, and that's kind of been my mission in life, is like beyond, it's about me first, but then it's way bigger than me. That's how you, I think, have to do business in this world if you really want to scale, if you really want to have an impact, if you really want to make a shit ton of money. Like, you really do need to come from the most vulnerable core part of who you are, and then let it be bigger than who you are.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So something that I like to ask all of our people, when you ask me what questions, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't ask you because this is just it just comes more authentic, is, especially online, and we're always creating, and I even see it in the spiritual entrepreneur world and realm, and I see it in, the business and this, because I do kind of see them as they're 2 different worlds, and I get to be a part of both of them. And so I see it everywhere, especially online, like, this is great, everything's wonderful and peachy keen, and I'm going out here and living the life of my dreams and all this stuff, but we don't really talk about the vulnerable stuff and the dark stuff and, what it took to get there. And so I always ask, like, what would you say, and I say it in quotes because I don't really believe in failure, but I know that's a word that people relate to, is what would you say your biggest failure would be, what has been, and then how have you been able to overcome that?
Sure. I think my biggest failure has been not having my authentic voice out in the world, about my sensitivity, about my creative brain, about how I feel things emotionally. And even still, I feel like I'll be failing upwards my whole life at that. I think I'm still always unraveling newer, nuanced aspects of my identity here, not only as a human, but also as a spiritually conscious, expansive being. And so I think that, that failure has come through every aspect of my life when I've experienced the most pain. Even small amounts of pain in every day, I know, is coming from that wound of, I'm not going to be understood. I'm not going to be, especially on the human level, I'm not having the same human experience that most people are. So humans aren't going to love me or understand me or know me or feel me, or validate me. So I think that's why I live it every single day. That's why I made my work about it. That's why there's no compartmentalization in my life. Everything is the ultimate goal of not failing at expressing outwardly, and knowing that there's other people who need to see me doing that, like in a very literal, transparent way.
I think that's really huge. So how could someone be, and I know I'm asking for myself and then also for our listeners, being that authentic voice where it scares the crap out of you. There's times when I put posts and I am very open, I am very deep, and I am very vulnerable. But when I do those posts, like, I have to shut my social media off for like 5 hours. I don't even want to look at it. Like, and I have all these stories created that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose followers. I'm going to lose like clients. I'm going to, like, all this stuff is going to happen. And I just get stuck in stories. and I know this about myself, and so that's why, you know, I don't mind sharing, because I think vulnerability is power, and leader, like, that's how you can really be a leader. But how can people get past that and just go out there and just do it? Because those times that I have done it have been I'll come back and I'll get like 100 like comments and people messaging me like, thank you for sharing this, and like, oh my God, and I'll go to him, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at what happened. And he's like, yeah, duh, like, what do you think was gonna happen? So how can we like stop the stories that we tell ourselves about being authentic and who we are, and just go out there and do it?
Do what you just did and talk about how weird and fucked up that even the stories that we tell ourselves are what are preventing us on a daily basis from being powerful, from actually being of insane, amazing service to other people. Because like you said, the magic is always in the shit that feels the scariest. And doing that on a daily basis, like you said, I make a practice of every day, especially with my stories. I'm a very private person. I'm a very introverted person. Yet I use all of what I feel and put it out in a very public business, in a very public manner. And I don't do it in a way that's extroverted, because that's not authentic for me. I do it in a way that feels like you're getting an intimate look into my life and my daily routine, and what it feels like to, just as much as, you know, I love a video I posted the other day. It felt really vulnerable to repost on this comedian that I love. And because I'm like, oh, that's not really that spiritual of me, right? You get in your head based on whatever day it is about what group you think you're talking to. And I just have to remember, like, I'm talking to fucking humans that just need to hear that, like, on a day where I'm angry and I'm gonna like be screaming a little bit, which I did scream in my story before that. I'm also like looking at these comedy things to like laugh and remember that there's some cosmic humor in life. When you feel something shameful, do it out in the open. And like I said, you have to find your fucking people too to support you, because when it gets hard, like for me, when I put myself out there and I get 92 hate comments in a group forum, Facebook group in a place I used to live, so it was for the city that I used to live in Michigan, then you're like, holy shit, what do I do with all this grief of like my fears coming to fruition and slapping me in the face via 92 people? And you just remember that, all right, well, I'm just not in the right context. And every time your fear gets realized, it actually makes it easier to then just go do something that's even more vulnerable and scarier, because it's already happened and you did not die, right? You didn't like, you felt fucked up for a couple days and it sucked. And then you're like, yeah, but I still want to be who I am, because it just feels better than hiding myself for years ever did.
You know, so that's an interesting thing. Well, we have a joke of like, if we did something that didn't go well, we're like, you know, but did you die? And so that's one thing. And the two thing, and this is a little bit more practical, is that we realize that, you know, there's a grief cycle, like people talk about when people die. It's not just when people die. It's like for every loss, every failure, everything that you go through that didn't work, that you thought was going, you had some sort of expectations, there's a grief cycle. And so, and if you realize what the bottom of the grief cycle is, and that upswing is acceptance. And so when you realize that as soon as you accept that that thing happened, yep, and it is what it is, there's nothing you can do to change it, you can grab momentum and bring back up. And so it's like, you know, you had 92 negative comments, like, but that's what happened. And then the other thing we realized, and I haven't told the story on here yet, is that everything is happening for us. And there's a story of a guy that was in Wall Street that he loves strippers. And so he was this big shot Wall Street in New York, and he went to the strip club and he got to know this one stripper, and he gave her inside knowledge of this stock, and he and her went to jail for insider trading for like 18 months and lost all of his trading licenses, got fired, lost his house, his cars, I think he even lost his wife in the process. But this is the year 2000. So after 6-8 months of him being in jail, 2 planes run through his office building.
Mm.
And so this terrible thing that looked like the end of the world for him actually saved his life.
Yep.
And so if you can come from that, everything that happens, no matter what, is happening for you and not to you, you can come powerfully through any shit that like happens to you. It doesn't matter if it looks like it's the most terrible thing. As long as you're still breathing, you're still able to move forward, and it's happening for you.
Yep. And I think I always tell my people the same thing. You get to know after. All of us want to know what's going to happen before. And some of us do know what's going to happen. But we definitely, like you said, get to know the meaning of why this is happening or what this is happening for after. And the best of us will still have those days where our egos are telling us, like, you know, why aren't people responding to this post that I'm putting out? Why aren't people getting the value of what I do? Why don't people want to pay me for, you know, doing the work that I'm doing, and I'm showing up and I'm doing all these things, right? But it is about, like you said, understanding that ultimately, as long as you have human connection and support, then you can make it through all of the crazy shit that, you know, potentially would be your unending. And that's what's happening with empaths on the planet, like being on the planet at this point in time, is that all of this stuff that's taboo, and grief is actually a huge taboo in terms of emotions. It's probably the most taboo emotion. It's the most common emotion that people feel on the planet, which is funny. All of these things that are taboo, though, are going to be told out in the open, are going to come to the surface. So just kind of like that guy, it's like, make decisions based on what you really want people to know about you, because we are such a public, kind of exposed community time period, you know, of humanity in this time of the in this time of history. So just be prepared that like the choices that you make will be broadcasted, and what would compassion do in any moment is kind of my thing. And then for sensitive people, it's going to be, don't think that you have to be some sort of savior, angel, or something like that. I systematically try to program out my humanity all the time and just show the highest version of myself. And I catch myself every single day doing that. So, you know, some people are learning the opposite lesson where they're doing all the weird stuff, and then they get exposed on a human level. I think a lot of us that are highly sensitive are trying to be very not human. And we have to be okay that like there's going to be moments of anger and grief, and there's going to be moments where no one's understanding what you mean, even if you're explaining it the best you can. Like you said, I think it comes back to that's part of the process. And if you can enjoy every aspect of it, even when it sucks, just you can say, oh, you know, my dad just fell off a ladder the other day, and I'm in California and he's in Michigan. I'm like, God damn it, you know, my mom's in Mexico right now too, so like nobody's there with him. And it was just like a weird situation, but it created so much intimacy and so much togetherness for our family. I sent my friends in Michigan to go see him, and he was all pumped about like hanging out with them in the hospital, because nobody should be alone in the hospital, right? And I think that where there is tragedy, at least there in grief, there needs to be this ultimate human connection with people. And then we can start to say, yeah, I know that happened for a reason because it brought me closer to others. I think that's the mechanism that's happening in the world. So.
That's awesome.
So where can people find you and learn more about your programs and what it is that you do and connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, seeyourlight.love. And also I do a lot on Instagram. I am on Facebook too. I really have a good vibe with Instagram just because it's pretty and it's nice to use, and I like that platform a lot. So if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Ecstatic Creator. And I would love, honestly, to work with people that really do resonate with being very creative, very sensitive, working a lot less and striving less, and being able to get their message out there about how much we need each other in the world, and how much it's really time for sensitive people to feel okay as contributing members of society to start to run things here. So yes, if you are listening and that sounds like you, I am available to, you know, connect with you and help you unwind your unique purpose on the planet.
Awesome. And I'll have those links below too in the comments for this podcast. Chelsea, thank you so much. I truly believe in your mission. If there's anything we can ever do, I'm all for you. Please reach out, let me know. Any last words that you'd like to share?
No, just thank you again for this platform, for letting me, this is my scary thing for the day, for letting me do the scary thing today, talk to people in a bigger way. And just, if people are out there listening, just know that you would not be here unless there was a purpose for it. If you feel suicidal, if you feel disconnected from yourself, if you feel out of context, there are patterns of people just like you all over the planet. So take one small step today to do the thing that makes you feel like you're totally in flow and totally invincible, and do the world a favor. Show up for yourself so that we can get the benefit of what cool wisdom you're bringing here.
Thank you. I love that. I appreciate you. And for our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our episode, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.